What's the oldest language in the world? The answer might surprise you. Hi, I'm Maddie, I'm a linguist, and there isn't actually a good answer to this question. And that isn't because linguists just haven't figured it out yet, it's that the question doesn't really make sense. All languages change over time, and it is inevitable that any language will become unrecognizable to its original speakers, given a long enough period. I see a lot of claims that one particular language is the world's oldest, or that one language is much older relative to another. These claims often emerge out of an ethno-nationalist or fascist political context, common, for example, in the Balkans, but they also occasionally come from marginalized or displaced communities struggling for recognition from a dominant or colonizing government. For example, I've seen it asserted that Welsh is older than English. All claims like this are equally pseudoscientific. A single common ancestor, Proto-Indo-European, became all the Indo-European languages, all the Romance languages, all the Germanic languages, all the Celtic languages, including Welsh, as well as Russian, Hindi, and hundreds more. So every Indo-European language shares a continuous history of linguistic tradition, tracing back to around 4500 BC. There are other language families about as old as Indo-European, such as Niger-Congo, Austronesian, and Algic, but linguists aren't really able to study ways of speaking from much farther back than that, so the vast majority of languages currently spoken on the planet have roughly equivalent dibs on this much sought-after ancientness. Now you might be thinking, okay, fine, all of these languages share a common ancestor, but presumably one of these languages became its modern self first, and has thus been itself the longest. But there is no scholarly consensus about how to measure the difference between closely related ways of speaking, either historically, so Middle English versus Modern English, or concurrently, so Swedish versus the closely related Norwegian. Nor is there agreement about how much difference is enough to warrant a new designation. And most linguists agree that any formal definitions around this would be arbitrary. Even if we had standardized measures and definitions for what constitutes a separate language, the trophy for world's oldest language would constantly be changing hands, because being the oldest means being at serious risk for becoming the newest. Asking which language is the oldest of a group is essentially the same as asking which language here has changed most slowly in the window of time I'm interested in. But all languages drift in and out of slower and faster periods of change. Like I said at the beginning, language change is inevitable, so if you want to conceptualize the timeline of that change, demarcated by strict, arbitrary lines, and if a language is just similar enough to a previous version of itself to claim the ultimate prize as linguistic elder, it's probably getting super close to one of those lines, just a half century or so away from entering a new era.